Not yet.
You're right, 302, 412, 302. Oh, cool. That's right. I don't know why I was thinking it was a 1. It's 3, 3. Okay.
Hey, bud. Good. About to kick it off. The time for convening has arrived, so we'll start this evening's series of meetings. Before we get into the official aspects of the meetings, I'm going to take a point of personal privilege. This weekend was rather trying for our community when we lost water and to a large section of town. Tragically, this is the second time that's happened in about the last decade. Where we had a system-wide failure that affected virtually all of the city. And we found out about it when people started calling in and said, "Where's our water?" And then we reached out to the city of Atlanta and learned that they were doing some work on the Roswell side of the river on the main trunk line that feeds Sandy Springs with water from Johns Creek. And so we jumped in to try and figure out what was going on, making phone calls to the water commissioner, the chief of staff for the city of Atlanta, to try and find out what was going on and get to the bottom of it. And we discovered, and it took a while. It took a while to finally, and it took them a while to figure out what was going on. The break was under the Chattahoochee River, and they had to get divers in to go look for where the break was. And then while they were doing that at night, we had a lightning storm, so they had to take the divers out of the river, and that delayed them being able to find it. And they ultimately found about 4 o'clock in the morning, or about 2 o'clock in the morning, that there was a valve, what they call a gate valve, had blown off, and they had to go and fabricate the part, and then also then replace it. So there was about a 24-hour period there where we had, I would call it at least a water emergency, if not a water crisis. So our staff jumped in the middle to start trying to find out what was going on. I do want to apologize to our community. We generally are pretty good at communicating during emergencies, and I think we did okay in communicating. We didn't live up to our normal standards. We didn't use all the platforms that we had available to us. And the city manager and I met with the staff this morning, and one of the things that was missing, and this was, since this had happened a decade ago, we should have figured that this would be something we needed to add. We have a book that outlines what everybody does in every kind of emergency. We didn't have a section on water emergencies. That's been solved. Everybody now knows what their roles and responsibilities are. We met Monday morning with staff to go through that, and they did a great job of responding and accepting responsibility, and then deciding, look, we're just going to fix the management problem that we have. But I want to, and I also want to thank the mayor of Atlanta. The city manager and I went down and met with Mayor Dickens today. Within 48 hours after the event, to sit down and do some Monday morning quarterbacking, make sure that we had the lines of communication open going forward. So if something like this happens again, we know who to call, they know who to call, so we did a lot of, I think, good things on the fly. But we didn't live up to our normal standards about making sure that everybody in the community was aware of what was going on. So we worked to make sure that doesn't happen again. I would encourage people to be sure that they sign up for the Sandy Springs alerts on the website. That is our best way of keeping people informed about what's going on, whether it's something like we had this weekend, or in the future, whether it's a weather alert or whatever. Occasionally we get wind and snow and people want to know what's going on. That's the best way to find out, because we send out information over those alerts. Our website, we've got, we're going to make sure going forward that information is easily findable on the website. We'll use robocalls, whatever it is, to make sure that we get the word out going forward. And we've got a protocol now in place to make sure. We try to do things better than anybody else. So we did a good job. We just didn't do a great job. So next time we want to be in a position to do a great job and hope that we never have to do it again. When you have an emergency plan, that's your goal. Make sure you never have to use it. So anyway, I wanted to make that statement before we got going tonight. So with that, I see a lot of red T-shirts out there. Francis, you want to come talk to us about the Community Assistance Center and the update? You brought your whole chorus with you, I see.
Thank you, Mayor. Council members, thank you so much for the time we have this evening to spend with you. We have come to do just a couple of things tonight. One is to thank you for the continued support of the city over the years and what we're trying to do at CAC. We appreciate it very much. And secondly is to give you a bit of an update on where those resources are being used and the impact that they're having. Most of you know that we've been around since 1987. Since that time, we've been pursuing the same mission of trying to provide basic needs in order to prevent homelessness and hunger, but going a little beyond that and helping our clients move towards self-sufficiency and ultimately to thrive in the community. We continue to pursue that mission, and we will continue as long as our community has those needs. We do that through this list of services. We call it a holistic approach because we think it touches on many different aspects of life of our clients and what they need. We have our mini markets, which are food pantries. Now we have 3 locations, 2 in Sandy Springs, 1 in the south, 1 in the north, and then 1 in Dunwoody as well. They're all client choice pantries, meaning clients come in and shop and they pick what their family needs. And rather than me deciding what they need and put it in a box, they come and get it themselves. Our financial assistance is filling a huge need as costs rise, rents go up. More and more families find themselves in a position of making the decision, do I buy food or do I pay rent? And we're trying to help alleviate that decision a little bit by providing some financial assistance to help with rent and utilities. And then we have our thrift store that provides clothing and small household items to our clients on a voucher basis, but then also to the general public. All of you guys need to come shop at our thrift store. You find amazing deals there and on great quality stuff. We have adult education classes that entails 6 different levels of English. English is a second language, some computer classes, and then some financial management classes as well that we try to help our clients set some financial goals. And then we last year kicked off our career center, trying to link the workforce and the workplace. We do that through volunteer career advocates that act as coaches and walk with our clients through the process from job seeker to being on a career path. And in fact, right in this very room this past March, we worked with the city, partnered with the city, and conducting a career fair where we brought those 2 elements together. And we've already set the date for the next one over in September. Our youth and seasonal programs target families with children. Right now we're doing summer lunches, providing lunches for kids that normally get free lunches in school. We're providing them through the summer. Next will be backpacks full of school supplies, then coats for kids after that, food boxes around Thanksgiving, and then our Adopt a Family program at Christmas. Wherein last year, 1,600 kids got adopted and had gifts at Christmas time. Kids ought to have a chance to be kids. Then some of you may not know about our Volunteer Income Tax Assist program. It's completely volunteer-led. It's an IRS program that's administered by the United Way, and we are an implementing partner of the United Way. Our volunteer team does tax returns. This year they did 400 tax returns. Those 400 tax returns put more than $700,000 back into clients' homes through tax refunds and tax credits. I was there one Saturday morning about 8:30 in March, and a lady came in for a VITA tax appointment. She was a little bit early, so she sat down, and I introduced myself, and she said, "I've got to tell you that CAC saved my life." I said, "Well, I'm going to sit for a minute and listen." She said just before the pandemic, she came from Russia, was able to find a job, was doing okay, paying her bills, making it through. Then COVID came, and during the pandemic, she lost her job. Was not able to pay bills. Rent got behind. She got depressed. She went into her closet one day and tried to commit suicide. It didn't work. A little bit later that day, she was outside talking to one of her neighbors who told her about CAC. She came to CAC. We were able to help her catch up with her rent, helped her with a little bit of food and a few articles of clothing. But mostly, we helped her with some hope. Hope that tomorrow was going to be a little bit better than today. She said, "You guys literally saved my life." I said, "Wow, that's a pretty good story." I said, "But since then, where are you now?" She said, "Well, I moved to Augusta." I said, "Augusta?" She said, "Yeah." I said, "You drove over here from Augusta this morning for a 9 o'clock appointment on a Saturday?" She said, "Yeah." I said, "I think there probably are tax preparers in Augusta, and there's probably some free ones." She said, "Yeah, probably so, but I trust CAC." Everything we do, all these services that we perform, we build toward upholding the dignity of our clients, maintaining the respect of our clients, and building that trust relationship. This is just a numerical picture of what we were able to do last year and so far this year. I just want to call your attention to a couple of numbers here. You have all of this information in front of you. If you look right under the year, 2022, you'll see that through the year we were able to serve 6,908 people. That's unduplicated people. If you look across to 2023, already through the end of May, we're already up to 4,725. So that tells you the trajectory that our clients are on in visiting us. If you look down under financial assistance, 636 evictions that we were able to help prevent last year. 636 families that got to stay in a home. Already this year, that's up to 305. And then you look down at food assistance, and you can see the trajectory is the same for our folks visiting our food pantries. Let's talk just for a minute about Sandy Springs in particular. 77% of our clients are Sandy Springs residents. You can see by these numbers the reach that we have into that community, into our community. 235 of those evictions that we've helped prevent, Sandy Springs folks. Almost 250,000 pounds of food, Sandy Springs folks. And this next slide I want you to see is just, it gives a picture of how our clientele is changing. If you look at that blue bar is the total number of clients that we've served in each year. The orange bar is the number of clients whose income was under the poverty level. The gray bar is the clients with income above the poverty level. The gray bar is the one I want you to focus on. You see from 2020, by all accounts, 2020 was a bit of an aberration. But you see from 2020 through what we project for the rest of 2023, that gray bar is on the increase. People with incomes above poverty are coming to see us more and more. People that never have needed assistance before are coming to get assistance. Like the young lady who came to us not long ago, who's a mother of 3, single mother. And she came and never had sought assistance anywhere else. She's working the same 40-hour job she was working 4 years ago, driving the same car, living in the same 2-bedroom apartment. Her kids are in the same school. She's shopping at the same stores. She made it through COVID. Then every price in life went up. She could no longer pay the bills. She had to come to us for help. People that have never asked before are coming to ask. Does the support that you provide, does the support that we provide, the help that we give work? Yes, it does. How do we know that? We know that because we ask our clients. 60, 90, and 180 days out after a client receives help from us, we contact them to see how they're doing. In 2022, that told us that after 180 days, 93% of our clients had stabilized their housing situation. 57% of our clients had completely resolved their crisis. It works. The help that you provide, the help that we provide works, has an impact, is incredibly transforming lives in our community. So what's the takeaways for today? First of all, Sandy Springs gives. Sandy Springs City, Sandy Springs people, they give. Time, the majority of our volunteers are Sandy Springs residents. Their energy, their gifts, their talents, all of that, Sandy Springs is giving to people like us and others. But also you see from the data that we've looked at so far that the needs are not going away. Just in our food pantries alone, our number of clients visiting those is up 57% this year over last. Across the board, our services are up 47% this year over last. And the resources are not keeping up. I mentioned just a moment ago those 636 evictions that we helped to prevent in 2022. That could have been 900 had we had the resources to do so. They're on the rise. These are all big city needs. Poverty, hunger, housing. These are all needs that we find in big cities. Here in Sandy Springs, we're trying to meet those in small town ways. We're trying to build community. We had a guy come in not long ago who just got kicked out of his apartment. He's looking for a place to stay. We don't have beds, we don't have showers and those kinds of things, but we have friends that do. And so we were calling around to various organizations that we know have beds and trying to find him a place to stay, and as usual, they were all full. And one of the organizations we called is You Hope, who's right around the corner from us. As this conversation between this man and one of our volunteers was going on, there was another client sitting in the waiting room, and he was hearing this. He was listening to what was going on. And just when all seemed was lost, this man stood up and walked over, and he said, "Hey, man," he said, "I work at the apartment complex where You Hope is, and they're right, they're full. But you come with me, I'll hook you up with a bed." Client in need, helping a client in need find a bed for the night. We build community. Sandy Springs City was formed and built on the idea of providing excellent services to its residents. CAC continues to provide excellent service in providing needs, meeting needs, serving the community of Sandy Springs. So the ask for today, I want you to come visit. Come see us. Let us give you a tour of our operations. We've done some renovations since most of you have been there. Let us come and show you that. Show you what we do, give you an idea of why we do it. But also donate your time. We got some volunteer slots you can plug into, Mayor. Give your treasure, your talent. In fact, one of our board members turned 70 this year. She's initiated a campaign to raise $70,000 for her 70th birthday for CAC. You guys can join her in that, or you can create your own. And then continue to be a CAC ambassador. We need people to know where we are, who we are, and what we are, especially those folks that need our help. Let's help them know where we are and how to come see us. Thank you. Thank you for the partnership, the continued support that this city has given to CAC over the years as we continue to pursue that mission of preventing homelessness and hunger. Thank you for your trust in trusting in us to give appropriate help in appropriate ways. That's what actually attracted me most to CAC. And then thank you so much for considering the increase in the help that Sandy Springs is going to give to CAC as we continue to pursue helping our neighbors. You guys are a huge part of that, and we very much appreciate it. I'm more than happy to try to answer any questions that you might have this evening.
Francis, thanks to you and for the entire organization. We rely heavily on CAC to provide services to our community. In our structure of government, cities don't normally provide social services. That's a responsibility for the county. But we have invested in CAC for a long time and will continue to do that because you do provide excellent service and you do provide hope and opportunity for the people in our community who really need it. So thank you and the whole team back there for what you're doing to help the least, the lost, and the left behind in Sandy Springs.
Thank you very much.
Any
Mayor.
questions? All right, Dr. Kelly and then Ms. Rochelle.
Hello, Mr. Horton.
Hello, Ms. Kelly.
One of the questions I have is how far above the poverty line can you actually be to get help? I mean, like, what's
Well, what we look at is the reason for loss and what that crisis is. Okay, and if the resources that you have otherwise, let's say you have reduced hours at work. That's what created a crisis for you in being able to pay that rent, for instance. Then we're going to look at what other resources you might have access to. It's not so much looking at a level of income as it is resources that are at your disposal. So we're looking at reason for loss and what other resources you can tap into in order to fill that need.
okay? And the education part, I noticed, I know you have a partnership with our economic development department. I saw something online recently about like a cybersecurity.
We've just had two of our clients in our career center accepted into WIT, Women in Technology, their cybersecurity training program, which is incredibly competitive to get into. So some of our staff help them work through applications and that kind of thing. So they're in that program.
That's
now.
what I was wondering. Is that something that you help them apply for? Or?
We absolutely did, yeah. We made them aware of it and then helped them work through the application process.
Do you all track the folks, I guess, who you turn away, just the number of people who, I mean, when you reach your capacity?
We do. We track everybody that comes in the door.
Okay.
One of the things that CAC does is we know our clients. So if you walk in the door, somebody talks to you, and we start getting to know you. And so even if we can't help you, we know something about you. We don't necessarily check on that person every 60, 90, 180 days, but we do try to track as much as possible, keeping information on everybody that comes in and gets interviewed, whether we help them or not. We have that information stored.
So it's like if you have 600 plus evictions that you helped, I just wonder how many.
So what we saw happen last year was that around about July, August, we began to look at the fact that people were not coming in to redeem the pledge that we had made to them for rent. So we very seldom pay a full month's rent. We'll pay half a month's rent, and they're responsible for finding the rest. Now, we will refer them out to people that they can go ask for that, or they go to other resources that they personally have. And then they come back, when they get the remainder, they come back and redeem the pledge, and we send a check to the apartment complex. What we found was that around about mid-year or so, it seemed like a lot of pledges were being left on the table. And so we began to look at it, and there were about 40% of the people that we were willing to help never came back to get their pledge. The reason that we figured out was that the resources that we had were not enough to make a difference in their life. Where people used to come in $1,000 in debt, now they're coming in $2,000 in debt, $3,500 in debt. You get many of those and you just can't cover a lot of it. So the resources that we had at that time just were not enough to sufficiently fill that need so that they could find the resources to get the balance of the rent due. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it does. Thank you.
And that, I'll be honest with you, that hurt our heart. That there were 40% of the people that we wanted to help, but we just didn't have the resources to adequately do so.
So the volunteers at cac.org is an email address. I just saw it on the slide that people can use if they want to volunteer.
They can send the email to that email address, and we'll hook you up with volunteer slots, whether it be individuals or 2 or 3 folks together. We'll get the whole council in there at one time.
Okay.
Ms. Rochelle.
Hi, thank you so much for being here, and thank you for everything that you guys do. I've had the honor of being able to volunteer there, and I enjoyed every minute of it and enjoyed meeting all of you and all your clients. I'm curious, I just read an article about fees that were getting tacked on to, that landlords were tacking on a lot of fees for all kinds of reasons, and I wanted to know if any of the apartment complexes are working with you to waive some of the late fees and any other fees that they might tack on if they're willing to negotiate.
There used to be a day when that happened. It doesn't happen so much anymore. most of the apartment complexes around here, as you guys know, have changed ownership over the past couple of years. The new owners are not as amenable to negotiations, are not as amenable to working things out as the old owners used to be. And so we haven't been very successful in the last year and a half or so in getting those fees waived. They just keep tacking them on. And so that can add 1.5 times to whatever rent's due by the time they get through tacking on the fees. So it's unfortunate.
Add how much on?
1 to 1.5 times. It can double it to 1.5 times it.
Oh, that's too bad.
It's very unfortunate.
Anybody else? Francis, again, thank you. Great report. We appreciate everything you're doing. Keep it up.
Thank you very much. And I wanted you guys to see who puts feet to those funds. These are the guys that do the work. Thank you very much, Alan.
Thank you. All right, moving on. Open sculpture competition purchase recommendations. Ms. Morris.
Hello, I'm Sherry Morris with Art Sandy Springs. I'm chair of the public art program there. And we have just completed this last year's competition. You guys have enjoyed, the whole community has enjoyed the 9 sculptures out on City Green. And we are here to recommend the purchases every year under contract with us. The city purchases some pieces. This year, in consideration of some constraints, we are recommending that one piece be purchased. That piece, I guess I should advance this. That piece is called Inspire. It is a copper piece with patina. We selected it because people have really enjoyed going up and having their picture taken in front of the angel wings, and it's brought a lot of smiles to faces. We are recommending that it go on the first leg of the new Master Trail program, and we'll work with Mike Perry and Parks and Rec to place it exactly on the spot we want. In addition, we have a nice little surprise. Speaking of that trail, Sandy Springs Conservancy, I'm also founding board member of that, wants to purchase for the city Single Rider. This is by Jim Collins. The city has purchased one of his pieces before, Watching Walker, Carrying the Children, and that is down at the Marsh Creek Rain Garden Park. And this would be a gift to the city. The board of Sandy Springs Conservancy has voted to make this purchase. They also want to put this on the trail. So we're starting a nice population of lovely little surprises of art along that trail. Last but not least, this is aspirational. We love this piece. Moon Man Moves. The children love this piece. It's everyone's favorite. And we just can't stand to let it slip through our fingers. And so we are calling friends and relations and trying to raise money for Art Sandy Springs to either find one donor who will give this to the city or a group of folks. So this is not a promise, it's an aspiration. The sculptures get pulled out in early August and changed over to next year's exhibit. And so we've got about a month or so to get this across the finish line, and we're working the phones to do that. So tonight's request is that the city purchase Inspire by Jim Weitzel for the 2A trail segment, yet to be named with a marketing name, and that the city accept the gift of Single Rider from Sandy Springs Conservancy. And by the way, they sent a representative tonight, Terry Morris. He has worked long and hard on the rights-of-way acquisition. I know him. By the way, he's not a dork. He just had cataract surgery because we're old people now, and he has to wear dorky glasses for a while. But it's killing me. I tried to get him to stay home. But Sandy Springs Conservancy, bless their hearts for all that they do with and for the city. And to accept, should we be so lucky to raise the money, Moon Man Moves. We are considering it at Hammond Park. We think it would be nice there with, y'all remember Hand Plant, another colorful piece that we put there the first year. But we do want to leave it open that the donors may have an opinion about where they'd like to see it. So Our request is for a motion to buy one piece and accept one piece as a gift and pre-accept another piece, so y'all don't have to listen to me again for a little while.
Well, we'll have to do that in regular order, not during the work session, so thank you. Any questions? All right, Ms.
I
Morris.
did have a question.
All right, Dr. Kelly.
Regarding this particular piece. Where did you say you'd
We're
want it?
looking at Hammond Park.
Okay, that's
Because it is a piece that kids have particularly liked. And the gymnastics gym there,
Right.
it draws a lot of children.
I remember now. Thanks.
Anybody else? All right, thank you. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
All right, T-Splost update. Mr. Johnson, accompanied by Mr. Burnett.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. It's good to be with you again. It's been a while, and I am here tonight in an official capacity as your representative to the T-Splost 2 Citizens Oversight Committee. You'll recall that this is the second phase of T-Splost. We call it T-Splost 2. The first phase began April 1st of 2016, and the late Kevin King was our representative during the 5 years of that Citizen Oversight Committee. With his passing about 14, 15 months ago, Mayor and Council asked me to step into his shoes, and I've been working on this initiative now for about the past 15 months. So if we can go to our first slide, where do I have that here? I do. Excuse me just a second. So this is, as I said, T-Splost 2, which began in 2021. And in essence, we continued the initiative that started with T-Splost 1 with a 0.75 cent, or that would be 3/4 of 1 penny sales tax added to all sales tax collections in Fulton County for a 5-year period, beginning April 1st of 2022 and going through March 31st of 2027. So we're just a little over a year into this initiative, which is a good time for us to do our presentation because we're at the annual or the anniversary of our first year of collections. Overall, in the aggregate, the estimate is about $546 million in total tax collected across Fulton County that will be earmarked for 14 cities. Now, there are 15 cities in Fulton County, but the City of Atlanta has its own independent T-Splost initiative. So the other 14 cities are in what we call T-Splost 2. And of that, Sandy Springs is the largest. Our collections are based on the population of our community, and we collect about 18.27% of the total tax revenue collected countywide. And you'll see there we've got broken into 3 tiers. Tier 1, just a little short of $85 million in transportation projects. I think we all feel fairly confident based on where we are through the first year of the program that we should be able to hit our Tier 1 projects. And right now we're tracking to hopefully hit the majority of our Tier 2 projects. I would say the Tier 3 projects may be aspirational at this point, and Alan will talk with you a little bit more about that in just a few minutes. Hopefully you can read this chart, and I'm not going to go into this in detail, but you can see numerically how the numbers work out for Tiers 1, 2, and 3. Again, a little short of $85 million in Tier 1 projects, and they're listed there. Of course, the largest of those is the Hammond Drive widening project at over $38 million. If we are fortunate enough to get into Tier 2, that would be an additional almost $15 million, which would be for the other 2 projects there, Roberts Drive and the Johnson's Ferry Side Path project. So in total, when you look at Tiers 1 and Tier 2, we're just slightly under $100 million in expenditures between Tier 1 and Tier 2. So let's look at how we're doing thus far. And 2022 was an excellent year. As you can see, we surpassed collections, and this was the first 9 months of collections beginning April 1st and through 12/31 of 22. And you can see that we collected almost $14 million, or I'm sorry, our revenue projection based on the projections that were originally done by Georgia State University, who did the data projections for this program. We projected to receive about $13.9 million in proceeds, and actually received almost $18 million in proceeds over a 9-month period. So we were tracking 129% ahead of the projections through the first 9 months of the program. Now, a lot of that was driven by inflation and the continuation of a robust economy. Prices on goods and services have been increasing, as we all know, but consumers were still spending money. Certainly we're spending money in 2022, and so as a result, we did better in tax collections than we'd originally expected. But let's look to where we are in the first 4 months of 23, and you'll see some changing trends afoot. You can see through the first 4 months, so this is basically 13 months in total revenue since the project commenced in April of last year. And we're at about $9.6 million was projected, and we're at about 6.6, and we're at $6.8 million. So just slightly over our projections. And you'll see we were tracking every month in 22 above projections. That's not the case. We do have 1 month in February where we were less than projections, and we're now hitting much closer to right at our projections. Now, this is not unusual, honestly. First quarter collections will typically be down. You've got some post-holiday reductions in consumer spending, and so you tend to see that more in the first quarter. The key is going to be, do we see our numbers going up the remainder of this year and going back to the higher levels that we saw last year? If we don't see those going up, then I think we'll be beginning to see the effects of a reduction in consumer spending because of the softening economy and higher interest rates, which are impacting the consumer's ability to spend money. But if you look at where we are, and I'll turn this over to Alan in just a moment, but if you look at some crucial numbers to keep in mind, first of all, to hit our T1 and T2 projects in total, which is slightly under $100 million in total tax collections, every month for 60 months, we need to collect an average of, I believe it's $1,620,000, I think it is. And if you look at where we are thus far through the first 13 months, we're at about $1,580,000, I believe it is, on a monthly basis. So we're not quite tracking, but we're very close to tracking at sufficient collections through the first 13 months to take care of both Tier 1 and Tier 2 projects. If you look at where we are for just the Tier 1 projects, we need to collect an average per month of $1,413,000, and again, we're at $1,580,000. So we're tracking well above, on a monthly basis, where we need to do right now to get our Tier 1 projects completed. However, we all know that inflation is affecting construction as well, and Alan will talk more with you about that in just a moment. And prices of the bids that are going out, whether it's land cost, construction, labor, all of those things are increasing with the rate of inflation. But at least to this point in time, we are tracking well for Tier 1, and we're tracking closely on Tier 2. So with that, if there's no other questions, or if there are any questions on the financial side, I'll be happy to answer those, and then Alan will talk about the specific projects.
Any questions on the revenue side? Dr. Kelly.
Can you give those numbers one more time, those monthly tracking numbers for Tier 1? I'm sorry.
Yeah, so if this is through 13 months, if we needed to hit all of our T1 expenditures, we need to collect $1,413,000 monthly in revenues, and that would get us over a 60-month period all of our Tier 1 allocations. To hit Tier 1 and Tier 2, and I apologize, I did misspeak, that would be actually $1,662,000. And that would, again, times 60 months would get you to $99.7 million, which is the total of Tier 1 and Tier 2. We're tracking at $1,580,000 through 13 months. So we're about $80,000 per month behind the total needed to get Tiers 1 and 2 on a consolidated basis.
For members of the public that are a little curious about our collections, where is that information shared, or where can they find it?
Well, through forums like this.
Okay.
Typically, the firm that's Goodwin Cahill, which is monitoring this for us, they are the engineering firm that tracks the data and provides it to us on a monthly basis. I typically get a report about 45 days after the close of the previous month, but we are getting monthly reports. And I know the city is getting that information as well on a monthly basis, so I'm sure those can be provided to mayor and council on a more frequent basis because we do get the data on a monthly basis.
Thank you.
Any other questions on the financials, collections?
Mr. Paul.
Mr. Paulson.
So, staff, where can we find this on our website? We have a T-Splost section on our website. Are these numbers posted there monthly, or is it just when we have a report like this do they come around?
We're going to post this program update, which will give this, and whenever we have the periodic updates. So what we've talked about doing for this program, for these numbers, for the next, if you go to the T-Splost page, we'll have this program update, which will have the latest numbers.
So, a suggestion, how about every 6 months, or every 3 months, whatever, but something like that. Just keep posting it so we don't have to necessarily have a meeting for the public to see what these numbers are. That ought to be pretty straightforward.
Yeah, we'll be happy to do that.
Thanks.
Any other questions? All right, Mr. Allen.
Thank you, Chris. Thank you, Mayor and
Johnson.
Council. So I'm going to go through some of the key projects in T-Splost 21 and T-Splost 2016. So, and then open for questions afterwards. So this is one of the key current projects, and this one's able to get into construction a little earlier because we used some early funds that were non-T-Splost. This is the Boylston Drive at Hammond intersection with some streetscape improvements. This is the area where there's an offset intersection at Boylston and Hammond. It's going to fix that. It used impact fees to get the design and some right-of-way started, and it's going to finish up using T-Splost funds to get the project finished. We're in right-of-way currently and anticipate, if we can get all the right-of-way, having construction start in the fall of this year. You're going to hear some more information about this later this evening. This is one of the biggest projects in the new T-Splost. This is the Roswell Road North End Boulevard project. It goes from Dunwoody Place to the Chattahoochee River. It's going to have medians in Roswell Road, streetscapes, multi-use paths on the side. It's going to improve the intersection at Dunwoody Place and Roswell Road and add a new intersection at North River Parkway and Roswell Road. This one, we've been working with GDOT for quite a while, and we're able to get federal funds allocated as part of the ARC, and this evening we'll be bringing to you the project framework agreement that allows us to get some federal funds to start the design for this. And once we can get that approved and get the procurement going, we hope to start design in the fall of this year. This is the other project that started with, it was actually a Tier 2 in T-Splost 1, but was elevated to Tier 1 for matching funds for T-Splost 2. And $4 million of local matching funds. This is the Georgia 400 multi-use path. Everyone's heard about this quite a bit. It was designed in conjunction with the City of Atlanta from Loredens all the way up to just north of Glen Ridge Connector, tying into a 285-400 multi-use path. The reason for this is for environmental purposes. You had to have logical termini. So we have an agreement with City of Atlanta to pay for their portion of the design. And you're going to see some more information about this project this evening, too, with regard to an updated project framework agreement. Atlanta is building their section from Loredens to the city limits, and we will build from the city limits to up at 285. And just to give you an idea of what the project will look like, the picture on the right is the existing Path 400 looking from Wyuka heading down toward Buckhead. The one on the left is a rendering of what the Atlanta portion would look like, probably close to Glen Ridge Connector. Atlanta is actually currently building the part from Wyuka to Loredens, and so they will start construction this year at the end of the year from Loredens up to city limits. The challenge we've got is with the inflation of all construction materials. The current estimate is $37 million, so we're going to continue to request additional funds from ARC and GDOT. We have about $19 million combined with federal and local funds. So we're going to figure out the best landing spots to build as much as we can with that money. We have a final environmental approval underway. We have, actually we've got right-of-way certification. So we just have one final closing, but we have a right of entry. So we have what GDOT calls the management let date, or the bid opening, in September of this year, and we're shooting for that. This is the first thing that we spent money on from T-Splosh 2. This is the cost of the enhancement for the Mount Vernon Bridge over 285. This is the first phase of the top-end 285 managed lanes. There are some auxiliary lanes that GDOT was building, and they would have just put a standard bridge over Mount Vernon. We, as we did with the path, or with 400 bridges, paid for enhancements that improve the aesthetics and also pedestrian access. There's paths and bike lanes and pedestrian lighting on this. And the construction is anticipated on the bridge. Right now it's August, but we're saying Q3. So we'll see. I think they're going to be starting to do some clearing and grubbing in the area. This is just kind of an overview of the sidewalk program, plus the Lake Forest sidewalk that was listed specifically in Tier 1. So we've got 19 projects in design for sidewalks throughout the city, about $11 million worth of total project. Most of them are in design. They've been in design and beginning in right-of-way. They started end of last year, early this year. We do have some smaller projects, gap fills, that won't need right-of-way. We hope to get to construction by the end of the year. And, of course, this is the big project for T-Splosh 2. T-Splosh 1 started the right-of-way and concept. That was the $12.5 million that was spent. That was from Roswell Road to Barfield. T-Splosh 2 is continuing the design. It's $35 million for capital cost. And the design's underway. We should have preliminary plans hopefully by late summer, and start have right-of-way plans by the fall of this year. So we'll start construction in the fall of 25 based on a couple of years of right-of-way. And this project, just as a reminder, is the section that is 2 lanes currently. It's going to go from Boylston to Glenridge. It's going to add roundabouts at Hildebrand and Laurel Terrace. It's going to, the low point of the existing Hammond is where we're putting a bridge which will have pedestrian access underneath. That's the rendering you see on the top. And you're going to, again, see some more information this evening, what we've been doing, just to kind of give you an idea. And one of the main reasons we got this section is because we had so much property already. There was an advance purchase program that is underway. We've purchased 26 parcels with T-Splosh 1 and 2. And actually, even before T-Splosh, 6 parcels were purchased of the full parcel. What we have, and then with the one that goes this evening, we'll have purchased or have 33 parcels on the north side and 2 parcels on the south side for 35 parcels in this area. But as we continue on, we're going to need partial right-of-way or easements for about 32 parcels, and then there are 4 full takes that we still need. So now I'm going to move on to the old T-Splosh. So again, this is kind of overview of the projects you've all heard about a lot over the last 5-6 years. So we've got $51 million in pre-construction. We've got, and there are several of the major projects. The 2 major projects are in that, an intersection and the last sidewalk plus last mile connectivity. We've got 2 intersection projects in construction, and we've got $32 million worth of projects that are complete. If we can get all the right-of-way we need and everything, we hope to move $45 million of that 51 into construction, or have construction contracts by the end of the year. So I'm going to go over the projects that are either in construction or will be in construction for T-Splost 1 this year. This one you all have heard about quite a bit. This is the roundabout at Northside Riverview Old Powers Ferry. Again, that's an old rendering. We're going to show an update of what the roundabout's going to look like with the landscaping. But the big thing with this, Northside and the side streets are closed right now. They will be closed through August 4th, and then right before school starts, we're going to open up Northside again. But the side streets will remain closed. And the current contract, we're working through some utility issues, but the current contract duration is 230 days. And I think we've got the detour figured out, but I know there were some growing pains with that, but have been working through that. This next project is intersection project. The plans are done. We have one parcel we need to get so we can put it out to bid. This project changes one turn lane to 2 turn lanes from eastbound to northbound Roswell Road and extends the through right lane. This also increases the radii on Roswell Road so buses and trucks don't hit the curb. This one increases makes operationally improvements to the project that reduces the queues. Right now, the neighborhoods of Princeton Square and North Springs have a hard time getting out. This will alleviate that. And if we can get the right-of-way, we hope to advertise this summer and start it in the fall, or at least by the end of the year. This project was approved last council meeting. This is Spalding at Pitts. If you've ever driven this, the existing, there's a left turn arrow that lets a couple cars through on Spalding, and then it backs everything up. It backs up on Pitts. So this adds turn lanes on Spalding and Pitts to help alleviate that. We're working through the contract approvals. The contractor has the contracts now, so hopefully we get this started in July of this year. And of course, we've got the Pitts Bridge that's being taken out just off the picture. So this will be a lot of construction going on in this area over the next year. This is our last sidewalk project. This is the last gap on Brandon Mill that will connect from Brandon Ridge to Lost Forest Drive. This is the last segment if you want to walk from Abernathy Greenway to Lost Corner. And then with the Dalrymple that was recently completed, when this gets done, you could walk the whole route from here up to Dalrymple, Roswell Road, and back down. So this is the last one of that. We've got 12 of 19 parcels acquired. If we can get the last of them, we hope to advertise in the fall and get started with construction by the end of the year. And then, of course, this is the big project for T-Splost 1. This is the Johnson Ferry Mount Vernon improvements. What this does, of course, we've got the Veterans Park in the middle. That's underway now. This one gets rid of the intersection at Boylston and makes it, instead of one-way pairs, it makes two-way traffic on Johnson Ferry and Mount Vernon. It's also going to improve traffic on Roswell Road with the help of the connector down by the Mount Vernon School and Vernon Trace. There'll be a new signal at Vernon Trace on the North Road and a new signal on the south side. This also has increases pedestrian access by multi-use paths throughout the inner part and sidewalks on the outer part of the project. And it's going to underground everything from Roswell Road to the library on down to Boylston. And again, if we can get all the right-of-way, we hope to advertise it by summer, fall, and get started in construction by the end of the year.
Alan, how long is this project going to take?
Figure a year and a half to 2 years. Okay. Now, what we've suggested is that the contractor would build the connector first, so it's kind of a wide open area, and then there will be traffic open all throughout. So there'll be staged construction throughout the project. And then our last major project on T-Splost 1 is the Mount Vernon Corridor, which will tie into the Johnson Ferry Mount Vernon project at the Mount Vernon School. This is a budget of $13.5 million, which participation from PCID. They're putting in about $3 million from Barfield to Abernathy. and then T-Splosh is paying for the remainder of the construction and right-of-way. This has multi-use paths on the south side, sidewalks on the north. It has improvements at the Glen Ridge intersection and also at Barfield. It's kind of, you see the renderings here. We actually have the plans complete. We just need one more parcel, and we can get it out to advertise, hopefully this summer, depending on, again, summer to fall, and start construction by the end of the year. And that is the last of the overview projects. But this is hard to see, but it gives you kind of an overview of where we are from a schedule standpoint. The top projects are the old T-Splosh ones. Kind of gives you an idea. In 23, 24, and 25, we're finishing those up. And then the other projects you see in 23 on are the new T-Splosh projects, especially the Hammond one that goes into 27, and then the rest are like the sidewalk and path projects that go through 23, or 24, 25 in construction. And then the very bottom one is the Roswell North, just with the GDOT coordination. That could go on for quite a while. I think they got a managed let date. I just saw the agreement of 2028. So we'll see on that. But that's just one of those GDOT projects that take a while from a standpoint. But 24 and 25, we're going to have a lot of construction going on into 27. So the final just summary of what we've done, I'll just jump on 21. You can see it's basically pre-construction, except for that project that we paid for the enhancements. But 26 program, 70% of the projects are complete. 21% from a count standpoint are in pre-construction, and 9% are in construction. Now, hopefully, if we can get it to construction by the end of the year, we'll move the construction component up to 26%. So we'll have had almost all of it, except there's one project that we will not have gotten into construction. We're trying to get in design, and that's the last mile connectivity project that we've been talking to PCID about on Peachtree Dunwoody. So, but with that, we'll have the rest of the program under construction or complete, hopefully by the end of the year. And that's all I've got. Any questions? Ms. Mueller.
So thank you, Alan. I've been clamoring for a long time for this update, so I really appreciate it, and I really like the Gantt chart. How often will you be updating that Gantt chart? Is like every 6 months, maybe, or and what's your realistic time?
Each project we update. Every 2 weeks, at least a month. Every month we update and we give it to management, but. That one's a little more involved, but yeah, we can update it quarterly. As whenever as we talked about putting updates, maybe we've talked about doing it quarterly or something. And as I see it, I'm like, oh wait, that's a little old. But yeah, we can totally do that.
Okay, and then to that end about updates, so I think you mentioned that this presentation right now it's a part of the packet. Mm-hmm. Are you going to be taking this presentation and posting it as part of the T-Splosh page? So
yes, that's our plan.
Standalone by itself.
Yes.
And it will be searchable to the public, right? They'll be able to go find it.
That's our plan.
Okay, that's
yes,
great. And then the other question that I get a lot on these projects is about the project detail, because they'll say the scope, right? They want a scope statement, if you will. What does this cover? What does this project cover? Mm-hmm. So we have in the weekly review, we have, the status, the current status, but then they're wanting to know a little bit more. I guess, is there a way to tie these together?
Yeah.
So it's just something to think about. You don't have to answer
No, and we've had that. If you go through, if you go to the, you got to navigate to it, the development page, and then you go to the transportation improvement page, and then there's a list of some of the major projects, and it'll have the description. And some of them have project pages, which really get into the details, and some don't. We're trying to update some of those to make sure.
I think that's important to just, if we could somehow just make that a little
The other
simplistic.
Thing you can do, though, there is the Fulton County. So I update the database monthly, quarterly. If you go to the T-Splosh page, and there is a Fulton County link, and it's got the location. I've been trying to get them to fix the newer projects on the GIS, their GIS. But if you go to that, that's in the T-Splosh page. Look for the Fulton County link. The descriptions are also in there.
Okay. So sometimes the links didn't used to always work. So if you're
no,
working
I
on
know.
that, that's good.
And we're working with communications on that.
And then a question on the TS-192. So there's the portion, it's the city portion, and the portion, it's the PCID.
Mm-hmm.
Which part will be done first? Are we going to do our part?
At the same time.
They're going to be done at the same time?
It's at the same time. Yeah, it's just basically funding.
And then how are we starting that? Like, I think you talked about the TS 191. We're going to try to do that cut through. So are we going to start at one end and go to the other, or how?
Potentially, let's just say the consultant on that didn't get into as much detail on their staging. It was like, here, let's do everything. But what we anticipate is that they will probably start on the south side, because we're not waiting for Georgia Power, because they still have to move all their poles, and probably to the south and east. So basically, from the upper school to the east, it's not as much, and it's easier, I think, for Georgia Power to move their poles. They were having some issues with Glen Ridge and trying to avoid the tree by the cemetery, so they're still tweaking that. But what we anticipate is you can work on the south side while Georgia Power moves their poles. So that's what we anticipate. It's going to probably be something on that side while the utility relocations occur, and then they'll go to the north side. But they haven't gotten into much in terms of specifics on that.
All right, thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
Anybody else?
Yeah.
Mr. Paulson, then Ms. Rochelle.
Thank you, Mayor. So, thank you very much, Alan.
Yes, sir.
My wife accuses me of being a 90%er, which means I can do the first 90% of a project like lickety-split. The last 10% is just hard for me. It appears it's also hard for DOT, and I give you an example. The Mount Vernon Bridge over 400 essentially has been done, Alan, for months.
It's going to
Yet
be done at the end of the month.
So how do we get the last 10%
The end of the month.
that project
It's always
done?
the end of the month. That's what we
End
joke
of which
about.
month, Al?
It's always, I
heard you. End of
I
which
can't
month
get
now?
into that specific, but that's what we bring it up, and supposedly, the end of this month, they're going to have it open. Don't hold me to that, but that's what they've told us. Yes.
The point is,
No,
let's keep
we've-
bird
we've-
dogging these, okay? Because
Right.
it seems
Yes, sir.
like they kind of get distracted with they're going on to the first 90% of another project. They don't finish up the last 10.
One of the things we
Let's try
were
to get
told
that
by
done.
GDOT officials was that bridge is not on their critical path. And so they're going to leave it like that until they get to the end of the project, and then they'll do it all overnight, basically.
But we press them. We have monthly meetings with them, the whole public works staff, and we press them every month. Where, you know,
It's been a disaster for over a year.
Yeah.
Okay. Ms. Rochelle.
Let me just ask a question about that. Are they planning on closing the bridge again? It was closed this past weekend on Mount Vernon. Are they planning on closing that again on the
I
weekends?
don't think so. There's no more plans to close it. I don't believe so.
It was closed.
I think it's just kind of the tie-ins and whatnot now. But I don't think I haven't heard there's any more plans
Okay.
for a closure.
Can you go to 191? I have a question about it.
Oh.
Yep.
Oh,
Okay.
sorry. Yes, ma'am.
So, okay, the road names, Johnson Ferry, Mount Vernon, and, okay.
It's going to stay. So we went through this whole iteration. And so basically, Johnson Ferry is going to be Johnson Ferry until it gets to basically Mount Vernon Towers. And then there'll be a sign saying, going forward, it's Mount Vernon. And basically the same thing, Mount Vernon, until you get to Boylston, and then it'll be Johnson Ferry. Because it doesn't cross anymore, but that has the least effect on people's addresses, especially the Mount Vernon Towers. So Mount Vernon Towers, I think we did some analysis. There's maybe one property that's going to have to change its address, but we're keeping the address. It'll just be, in Atlanta, you drive straight on a road and the name changes 3 times. That's basically what's going to happen here.
Okay. And then the pedestrian crossing is going to be right in front of Mount Vernon?
It is going to be off, there's going to be one by the, there's going to be a mid-block crossing by the library, and there's going to be one over just to the, and I can't remember the exact location, but maybe just a little to the east of the Mount Vernon Towers.
Okay, closer to the park, the Veterans Park?
Yeah.
Okay.
No, sorry, east, the other direction.
Oh, east
Yeah,
of it.
yes,
Okay.
ma'am. From the last time I saw, we can try to get something out regarding
Okay.
that.
And I did have a lot of questions today about the light there, so,
We've got a traffic study that's on the webpage. So this is one that has a lot of information, and light is not warranted at this location. So what you're going to have here is the lights that are warranted are at the other end that you see with the diagram here. So with the traffic that's coming through, that's where when they do traffic warrants for signals, that's the location. So at Mount Vernon Tower, because one of the reasons there is a light at Mount Vernon Tower now is because of that existing intersection. Well, the existing intersection is going away. So you'll have left turn, center left turn lanes and things that you can get in and out. But there will not be, not that we won't monitor it at some, for the future, but as part of this project, there will not be a light at Mount Vernon Tower. Same.
I just want to make sure we monitor it because they are really nervous about taking the left out of there. So I assured them today that we would continue to monitor the situation.
Yes, we will.
Thank you.
Anybody else? Dr. Kelly.
Right. A couple of questions regarding the North End Boulevard. So we just finished a scoping study, I think.
Yes.
Is that something that's public facing, or is that more of an?
It hasn't been. It was more to get. There we go. Hey, GDOT, will you buy into this and try to get the funding? So it was never presented what's going to happen regarding this project. There'll be 2 public information meetings. So it's like, hey, here's what we thought about. GDOT said, okay, we're willing to put money into that. That's kind of what the scoping study was. So the schedule we just kind of approved with GDOT during the concept phase, kind of like what we did on Path 400. There's an initial outreach and during the concept to the community. What do you like? What are you interested in? We take that concept, get it approved, and that'll be on the website and public facing. And then there'll be a public information open house. Like Path 400, we had it here with a number of people. We had a whole presentation and a lot of the renderings you might see on the Path 400. That'll be something similar for this project.
Okay. And the 9 million represents sort of the share we'll put up to
Yes,
this?
and right now, I think the current round, and what it'll be like with Path 400, you kind of seed money to start. So it was like 800,000, 80-20 split, and then it got more, and then of course now we're 37 million. So that's up. So the first thing you're going to see is like $1 million or something. So it's going to be 800, 200 for like the phase 1 to get through concept, wherever the amount is, and that 200,000 would come from T-SPLOST. So it leaves us another 9 million or whatever. So hopefully we won't need to use all that $10 million, and it could go to other projects if we utilize the matching funds.
Okay. The Georgia 400, the multi-use path,
Mm-hmm.
it's out of design.
It is. We've had the final field plan review. We have had, we're corrected final field plan review. So GDOT is finalizing, we're trying to get them to finalize. There's like 20 structures on this project, 2 bridges, lots of walls. So the bridge office is that's that 90%, trying to get them to finally approve the final plans. But we're putting together the whole bid package and everything. So the plans are done for this, and we're just trying to get something that we can put out to bid.
Okay. Are those posted or?
Yes. If you go to the website, there is the best thing now. It's got some like plexiglass sound walls that we're not going to do, but there are renderings. There should be a PIOH, and if not, we'll make sure it gets on there. There's a PIOH presentation on the page, and it's got kind of what it's supposed to look like. It was a really good presentation that I just gave it, but the consultant put together. It's got renderings kind of at every crossing, kind of gives you an idea of what it's going to look like at any given location.
Great. So you didn't really talk about this project, but I was just wondering if you had a little information on what's happening with 105 and the U-turn, addressing U-turns.
We are looking at that now. So we've come up with some options. We've got to take that to GDOT to see what we can do to maybe put some eyebrows in. If you did the access management section, the little extra area where they can do the turn on a curb, and we're basically trying to stay within the existing right-of-way and make the fix. So we are looking at that. We've got something that we're reviewing, and we're going to take to GDOT to see if they'll allow it.
Okay. And my last question, TS 108. I just wanted to know to what extent can we expect a volume increase, traffic volume increase after this particular intervention?
This project is not an operational or capacity enhancement. This
Right.
is this is an operational improvement, so it should not add volume at all. I mean, if you look at it, it's really about fixing the line, the queue. You know, if like I live in Princeton Square, the North Springs folks, they've been clamoring for this project for years because they can't get out of their neighborhood. So what this is really about is, you know, there's sometimes the queue goes all the way back to Brandon Mill. So
Alan,
this is
we
gonna
got to
reduce
wrap
that
it
queue.
up. We've got a long council
Oh, we
meeting
did.
tonight.
Okay, I'm sorry.
But
That's
so
fine.
it shouldn't increase volume. It's more about increasing operations,
Okay,
fixing operations.
appreciate it. Thank you
Yes,
so much.
Thank you. We're going to take a 5-minute break before we start regular session.
All right. Thank you all. Appreciate it.
What classes are you taking?
Mentor mentee program. There was I just saw an email today. Saturday, what class you doing?
Friday,
Okay.
That's what I wanted to do.
Yeah, what are you doing?
Going to Portugal.
She's doing Portugal Resort.
Like the country? Are you?
I didn't know that I was
You leave it tomorrow night?
tomorrow day.
I'll trade. I'm gonna have to share a hotel room with Ken.
Who?
Even if I have to share a hotel room with Ken.
Well, if we take anybody, it'll be the doctors.
Yeah. Take my wife.
Yeah.
Friday and then what do you do Saturday?
Oh, yeah, that's open, but gonna have a melody? I mean,
They're done what they do.
yeah, my intention was, you know.
First council. He was falling asleep.
Yeah, I was looking at you.
How long are you gonna be in Portugal?
8 days.
It's gonna be nice.
Have you been?
I know a lot of people are on, which must be a sign.
It's supposed to be what?
That must be some kind of sign.
Yeah, it's a lot. It's a popular place to go. This,
It's getting very trendy.
yeah, which is kind of. I don't want to go someplace that's too popular. I mean, I don't mind, but it's going to be crowded.
Yeah.
I'm just glad we're going after Kim being in the hospital, my friend's husband being in the hospital, and then the third couple, my friend was in the hospital. Like, I said, I'm going to, kiss the ground when I get there.
Thanks for coming on Sunday.
I mean, I would be happy to, I told you that.
Right.
I mean, you didn't come to my swim party.
Yeah, well, you know, I didn't think you were serious. That was a real thing.
I sent you.
Yeah, you did say that. What?
Why wouldn't it be a real thing?
I thought you had just made it up, because we read this. Okay, I'm sorry.
We don't have anything that's totally controversial.
You good? You good? Yeah, I'm good. Okay.
I don't know if I can make the whole thing out of try that. Yeah, the fire.
All right, let's resume for this evening. I'd like to call this meeting of the Sandy Springs City Council to order for Tuesday, the June 20th, 2023. Will the clerk please make the announcements and call the roll?
Oops, here we go. Good evening, Mayor and Council. First, I would like to remind those in attendance to please silence all cell phones and other electronic devices at this time. Individuals who would like to provide public comment at a city council meeting are required to complete and submit a public comment card in advance of the meetings. Public comment cards are available online and at the chamber entrance. Those providing comment may be allowed up to 3 minutes to speak on their single chosen topic. As I call roll, please confirm your attendance. Mayor Rusty Paul.
Present.
Councilmember John Paulson. Councilmember Melody Kelly.
Present.
Councilmember Melissa Mueller.
Here.
Councilmember Jody Rochelle. Councilmember Tibby DiGiulio. Councilmember Andy Bauman.
Please join me for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Madam Clerk, have we received any public comment cards?
Yes, we've received one from Cynthia Jackson, who I believe is in-house this evening.
All right, Ms. Jackson.
Okay. They're not in-house this evening.
Pardon?
No, they're not here.
Okay. Well, we appreciate the sentiment. Is there a motion to approve the meeting agenda?
Mr. Mayor,
Mr. DiGiulio.
I move approval of the meeting agenda for Tuesday, June 20th, 2023.
We have a motion by Mr. DiGiulio. Do I hear a second?
Second.
Been moved by Mr. DiGiulio, seconded by Mr. Paulson, that we approve the meeting agenda. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, we'll call the question. The question's on the meeting agenda. All in favor of the motion, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. Meeting agenda is approved. Is there a motion to approve the consent agenda?
Mayor Paul.
Ms. Rochelle.
I move that we approve the consent agenda for Tuesday, June 20th, 2023.
Ms. Rochelle moves approval of the consent agenda. Is there a second? Moved by Ms. Rochelle, seconded by Ms. Mueller, that we approve the consent agenda. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, the question is on the consent agenda. All in favor of the motion, say aye. Opposed, no. The consent agenda is approved. Moving to public hearings, the clerk will please read the first item.
This is agenda item number 2023-184, FY 2024 budget. This is the second and final public hearing and adoption, presented by City Manager Eden Freeman.
Ms. Freeman.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. This evening, we are happy to be at the last step in our FY24 budget approval process. This is our second and final public hearing. There have been no changes in the proposed budget since our last meeting on June 6th. However, we are happy to answer any questions that you all may have.
Any questions of the city manager on the budget? Are there any public comment cards? No. We'll close the public hearing. You've heard the report of the city manager. What's the desire of council?
Mayor Paul.
Mr. Paulson.
Move the approve agenda item 2023-184, accepting the adoption of the 2024 budget.
We have a motion by Mr. Paulson. Is there a second? Been moved by Mr. Paulson, seconded by Mr. DiGiulio, that we approve agenda item 2023-184, approval of the 2024 budget. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, we'll call the question. The question's on approval of the FY24 budget. All in favor of the motion say aye. Opposed, no. The budget is approved. The clerk will please read the next item.
Agenda item number 2023-185. This is ABL number 101108. Consideration of approval of alcoholic beverage license application for Bowen Fornello LLC, doing business as Bowen Fornello LLC, at 1100 Hammond Drive, Sandy Springs, Georgia 30328. Applicant is Giacomo Lozano for retail package and consumption on the premises of wine and malt beverages. Presented by Chief Financial Officer Tony Carlisle.
Ms. Carlisle.
Good evening, Mayor Paul and City Council. This is a new application for retail package and consumption on the premises of wine and malt beverages. Buon Fornello LLC, DBA Buon Fornello LLC, 1100 Hammond Drive, Sandy Springs, Georgia 30328. The applicant, Giacomo Lozano, has met all requirements and staff recommends approval. This is a new application. It is in Councilwoman Melissa Mueller's district.
All right. Have we received any public comment cards? All right, we'll close the public hearing. You've heard the report of the Chief Financial Officer. What's the desire of council?
Mayor Paul.
Ms. Mueller.
I move that we approve agenda item 2023-185 for the approval of alcoholic beverage license application for Buon Fornello LLC, doing business as Buon Fornello LLC, 1100 Hammond Drive, Sandy Springs, Georgia 30328.
We have a motion by Ms. Mueller. Is there a second?
Second.
Been moved by Ms. Mueller, seconded by Dr. Kelly, that we approve agenda item 2023-185, the approval of an alcoholic beverage license application for Buon Fornello at 1100 Hammond Drive, Sandy Springs. My Italian needs some work. Tibby, I'll take lessons later. Any discussion? Hearing none, we'll call the question. The question's on agenda item 2023-185, the approval of the alcoholic beverage license application. All in favor of the motion say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. The item is approved. The clerk will please read the next item.
Agenda item 2023-186. This is consideration to award a memorandum of understanding to Friends of Lost Corner, Inc. for programming at the Lost Corner Preserve, presented by Recreation and Parks Director Michael Perry.
Mr. Perry.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. I'm honored to be your Recreation and Parks Director, and I'm proud to say we have some of the most beautiful parks in all of Georgia, certainly in metropolitan Atlanta, and again, many that we're so very, very proud of. One of the jewels in our system is the Lost Corner Preserve, and just as valuable as that jewel is also the organization that we partner with, the Friends of Lost Corner, and they were awarded a memorandum of understanding in 2013 to provide leadership, provide mentoring to our staff, to help us work through the design of that property, as well as the ongoing maintenance, supporting volunteer programs, and all that goes into that. And it's a big job. And luckily we've got the leadership of Tricia Thompson, as well as her board of directors. And I feel bad, honestly, right now, because I was sitting over there getting ready to do this, and I realized I didn't see Tricia, and it's like, well, whose fault is that? That's mine. So I feel bad about that. But the preserve benefits us in so many ways, and again, their leadership is unquestioned. To give you a number of how many people may visit our park, I asked Tricia to give me a number, and she said, well, why don't we go with 20 a day? Well, that's way under, I'm sure. So minimum 7, 8, 10,000. But, they all go there and enjoy it for a lot of different reasons. Our board at the board at the Friends of Lost Corner, they're ambassadors for the city in all ways, and they're a pleasure to work with. We look forward to continuing that relationship. And the item before you tonight is the third 5-year agreement with Friends of Lost Corner. So with that, I'll answer any questions you might have.
All right, you've heard the report of the Director of Recreation and Parks. What's the desire of council?
Mayor Paul.
Ms. Mueller.
I move that we approve agenda item 2023-186 to award a memorandum of understanding to Friends of Lost Corner, Inc. for programming at the Lost Corner Preserve.
We have a motion by Ms. Mueller. Is there a second?
I support.
Okay, motion by Ms. Mueller, seconded by Mr. DiGiulio, that we approve agenda item 2023-186, award a memorandum of understanding to the Friends of Lost Corners for programming at the preserve. Any discussion?
I just have one quick question.
Dr. Kelly.
So, Mr. Perry, this essentially just formalizes your relationship, your continuing relationship with this nonprofit organization?
That's correct.
Got it. Thanks.
Any other discussion? Mr. DiGiulio.
Michael, I had the pleasure of doing another tour of Lost Corners. It's probably my 5th or 6th one, official tour, that is. I've been there other times. And I just can't back up what you said enough. That is one of the really great gems of the city of Sandy Springs, and thank God it was preserved. Because, developers would go crazy looking at that thing, and I'm sure they have. But that's one thing. Now, the thing I have mentioned to you and to everybody else several times, I wish you'd give it some attention to it or some thought to it. I know you give it thought to it, but
Yes, sir.
Of making that more suitable for events. I had an event there myself several years ago. It was a summer event, and it was perfect. Only thing was we had to bring in and haul out, bring in and haul out. There wasn't a refrigerator for ice or anything like that. I think there's probably some basic things we could do there for not too much money that just would enhance the services to the citizens of Sandy Springs. That's the business we're in, is enhancing the services to the city. So, citizens. So if you can give that some thought, maybe we can bring that up again next.
Yes, sir. I think that's
budget
very
cycle.
reasonable, and I hope I get an invitation to the next ice cream social that you have.
Ice cream social at Warner's Quarter turned out tremendous. See that you get one.
Yes, sir.
Ms. Mueller.
So, Michael, I think one of the things that's really fantastic about this peaceful park is the community garden that the Friends of Lost Corner partners with the city. I know I have a plot there, and I believe Dr. Kelly also has a plot. So I think that's something that we don't have at our other parks, where we can kind of go and grow flowers and vegetables, and that's great. Thank you.
Thank you.
Any other discussion? Hearing none, we will call the question. The question is on the approval of the memorandum of understanding with the Friends of Lost Corner for programming at the preserve. All in favor of the motion, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. The item is approved. The clerk will please read the next item.
Agenda item number 2023-187. This is consideration to approve a task order for call center services and to authorize the city manager to execute the same. Presented by Communications Director Andrew Allison.
Mr. Allison.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. Today, I bring for your approval the issuance of the attached task order to Faneuil, Inc. for call center services for fiscal year 2024 in the amount of $618,466, and the Council further authorized City Manager to execute the TO. As you may recall, on May 14, 2019, City Council approved a contract award to Faneuil for call center services. The contract called for service delivery over a 5-year period with the annual issuance of a new TO, assuming compliance with contractual terms and conditions by Faneuil. There's a 3% annual escalator built into the contract. 4 TOs have been issued pursuant to the contract. The most recent one was approved by Council on June 21st, 2022, in the not-to-exceed amount of $600,453. The attached TO represents the 5th TO to be issued under the contract and covers the fiscal year beginning July 1st, 2023, with the annual escalator, the not-to-exceed amount of the new TO is $618,466. So I ask that Council approve the task order, and I'll be here to answer any questions.
All right, you've heard the report of the Communications Director. What's the desire of Council?
Mayor Paul,
Dr. Kelly.
I move approval of agenda item 2023-187, approval of a task order for call center services, and to authorize the city manager to execute the same.
We have a motion by Dr. Kelly. Is there a second? Been moved by Dr. Kelly, seconded by Ms. Rochelle, that we approve agenda item 2023-187, the task order for call center services, and authorizing city manager to execute. Any discussion? Hearing none, we'll call the question. The question is on agenda item 2023-187, approval of a task order for call center services. All in favor of the motion, say aye. Opposed, no. The item is approved. The clerk will please read the next item.
Agenda item 2023-188. This is consideration of approval of the City of Sandy Springs General Liability Insurance Renewal for FY 2024, presented by HR Director Jennifer Emery.
Ms. Emery.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. Staff is recommending Mayor and Council authorize the City Manager to sign the insurance renewal effective July 1st, 2023 for continued coverage of the city's assets and liabilities. The premiums described in Exhibit A of the attached resolution will be funded through the City General Fund as approved for fiscal year 23-24. The increase to premiums is 11.74% this year, and Bob Seville is here to give us a little information on the insurance market and answer any questions.
Right, thank you.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. I'm here with Mike Royal, and we just want to give you a brief background. I think y'all have already reviewed the insurance that we have up on the screen, so we'll not go through that line by line. But I'd like to say that, Mayor, you talked about how the city is the best at doing many things, and this is another good example of it. The insurance market right now is probably one of the toughest that we've seen in the 40 years I've been doing it. And we're seeing double-digit increases of 25, 30% or higher with most cities, especially those with poor loss experience. The staff and city manager have done a fantastic job of managing the exposures and the growth in the city and keeping it all under control. So, and to have one of the top police departments and fire departments really helps. So, we've had an increase of the a little over 11%, but I would say about half of that is exposure increases, and the other half is a single-digit rate increase, which you should be very proud of. We've looked at options of taking the insurance up to higher deductibles, and we did increase a few deductibles so that we have a $25,000 deductible across the board. The cyber liability deductible is $50,000. It stayed the same, but the premium actually went down about 20%, which is a credit to Jonathan. Finally, if we did want to take higher limits, we'd maybe margin up to $50,000, and then we'd have to go to self-insurance. So, is there any questions?
Well, let me start before we start discussion, you've heard the report of the Human Resources Director and our insurance representative. What's the desire of council?
Mayor Paul?
Dr. Kelly.
I move approval of agenda item 2023-188, approval of the City of Sandy Springs General Liability Insurance Renewal for fiscal year 2024.
I have a motion by Dr. Kelly. Is there a second? Been moved by Dr. Kelly, seconded by Ms. Rochelle, that we approve agenda item 2023-188, the City of Sandy Springs General Liability Insurance Renewal for FY24. Any discussion?
I have one question.
Dr.
I'm
Kelly.
not sure who it's for. I'm curious about where exactly is this reflected in our budget? Like just in a, is it in one place or multiple places?
It's going to be in the general administrative budget
Got it.
under property and liability insurance.
Gotcha. Thank you.
Any other discussion? Hearing none, we'll call the question. The question is on agenda item 2023-188, approval of the City of Sandy Springs General Liability Insurance Renewal for FY24. All in favor of the motion, say aye. Aye. Opposed, no. The item is approved. The clerk will please read the next item.
This is agenda item number 189, consideration of approval of a grant agreement with the United States Department of Transportation for the Sandy Springs Safety Action Plan as part of the 2022 Safe Streets and Roads for All program, presented by Public Works Director Marty Martin.
Mr. Martin.
Mayor and Council, I'm pleased to bring some good news to you tonight. If you recollect, back in the fall of this year, we asked for your support in submitting an application for the Infrastructure Bill's Department of Transportation Safe Streets for All grant. In this case, we were asking for a planning grant. We made that application on September the 15th of 2022, and the U.S. Department of Transportation has subsequently awarded to the city $360,000 with a requirement for a local match of $90,000 in furtherance of the Safe Streets for All planning grant. From here, with the acceptance of this grant tonight, we'll convene a multi-departmental team as well. There will be a significant amount of public outreach in the interest of preparing this safety action plan that the grant triggers and implements. With that, we then become eligible for safety implementation grants, the tangible projects that would go along with this safety action plan. Mayor and Council, do you have any questions?
All right, you've heard the report of the Public Works Director. What's the desire of council?
Mayor Paul.
Mr. Paulson.
I move approval of agenda item 2023-189, approval of a grant agreement with the United States DOT for Sandy Springs Safety Action Plan as part of the 2022 Safe Streets and Roads for All program.
Got a motion by Mr. Paulson. Is there a second? It's been moved by Mr. Paulson, seconded by Dr. Kelly, that we approve agenda item 2023-189, a grant agreement with the U.S. Department of Transportation for the Sandy Springs Safety Action Plan as part of the 2022 Safe Streets and Roads for All program. Any discussion?
Mayor Paul.
Mr. Paulson.
This is kind of a unique grant, so I'm interested in you guys coming back to us periodically with your progress, sir. Okay?
Any other discussion? Hearing none, we'll call the question. The question is on agenda item 2023, accepting money and the approval of a grant agreement with the U.S. Department of Transportation for the Sandy Springs Safety Action Plan as part of the 2022 Safe Streets and Roads for All program. All in favor of the motion, say aye. Opposed, no. The item is approved. The clerk will please read the next item.
Agenda item number 2023-198. This is consideration of approval to authorize the mayor to execute a project framework agreement for design of the Roswell Road State Route 9 North End Boulevard project from Dunwoody Place to Chattahoochee River between the Georgia Department of Transportation and the City of Sandy Springs. That's PI number 0019793, Fulton County, Georgia, and Sandy Springs project number S2105, presented by Public Works Director Marty Martin.
Mr. Martin.
Mayor and Council, I have the opportunity to bring even more good news to you tonight, so hopefully it'll be received that way. As Alan Johnson mentioned to you in the T-Splost update, we had conducted a scoping study of the North End Boulevard, primarily in the interest of doing traffic measurements, et cetera, traffic safety measurements in coordination with the Georgia Department of Transportation, in the interest of making this project eligible to receive GDOT/federal funds support for this project. The fruition of that is now we have a $960,000 grant for preliminary engineering, thus a project framework agreement, to begin engineering work on this project. A local match required in this case of the difference between the $1.2 million in total estimated in PE cost and the $960,000. With this and our acceptance of this project framework agreement tonight, which I hope you do, we'll then begin a design procurement in accordance with GDOT standards to bring a consultant on board to deliver the total project through concept, as Alan mentioned to you earlier tonight, Dr. Kelly. So with that, Mayor and Council, do you have any questions regarding this project?
All right, you've heard the report of the Public Works Director. What's the desire of council?
Mayor Paul.
Dr. Kelly.
I move approval of agenda item 2023-190, approval to authorize the mayor to execute a project framework agreement for design of the Roswell Road State Route 9 North End Boulevard project from Dunwoody Place to Chattahoochee River between Georgia Department of Transportation and the City of Sandy Springs.
Motion by Dr. Kelly. Is there a second? Been moved by Dr. Kelly, seconded by Mr. Paulson, that we approve agenda item 2023-190, authorizing the mayor to execute a project framework agreement for Roswell Road North End Boulevard project. Any discussion? Hearing none, we'll call the question. The question's on agenda item 2023-190, authorizing the mayor to execute a project framework agreement for the design of the Roswell Road North End Boulevard project. All in favor of the motion say aye. Opposed, no. The item is approved. The clerk will please read the next item.
Agenda item 2023-191. This is consideration and approval of a supplemental agreement number 2 to the original project framework agreement with the Georgia Department of Transportation for the State Route 400 multi-use trail extension. That's city project numbers T0060 and S2121, and the Georgia Department of Transportation project number PI00-15023, presented by Public Works Director Marty Martin.
Mr. Martin.
Mayor and Council, in this case, I bring to you tonight an addendum or a supplemental agreement number 2 to the original project framework agreement that we entered in with GDOT back in November of 2016 to deliver the engineering services associated with the Georgia Path 400 project. In this case, the project or the preliminary engineering amount is estimated at some $1 million. ARC, who has been very supportive of this project all along, has come up with the 80% of that, in this case $800,000, requiring a $200,000 local match from the city of Sandy Springs. Those dollars are required to cover both the increase in design and engineering support with the final task order, which I'll talk to you about in a few minutes, as well as, if you recollect from a few meetings ago, we discussed environmental mitigation credits required for this project as well. These dollars also provide the funding to procure those environmental mitigation credits. So with that, Mayor and Council, any questions regarding this addendum to the PFA?
You've heard the report of the Public Works Director. What's the desire of council? Mr. Paulson.
I move approval of agenda item 2023-191, approval of a supplemental agreement number 2 to the original project framework agreement with the Georgia DOT for the State Route 400 multi-use trail extension project 0060 and S2121 with the DOT, and project number PI 0015023.
Motion by Mr. Paulson. Is there a second? Been moved by Mr. Paulson, seconded by Dr. Kelly, that we approve agenda item 2023-191, the supplemental agreement number 2 to the framework project framework agreement with Georgia Department of Transportation for the multi-use trail. Any discussion? All right. Hearing none, we'll call the question. The question is on agenda item 2023-191, approval of the supplemental agreement number 2 to the original project framework agreement with Georgia Department of Transportation for the multi-use trail along 400. All in favor of the motion say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. The item is approved. The clerk will please read the next item.
Agenda item number 2023-192, consideration to approve task order 4, scope of work and fee, Heath and Lineback, Inc., for the Georgia State Route 400 multi-use trail extension project. That's PI number, this is GDOT number, PI number 001523, Fulton County. City project numbers T0060, S2121, and to authorize the city manager to execute revised contract documents. Presented by Public Works Director Marty Martin.
Mr. Martin.
Mayor and Council, with task order 4, with your approval of the acceptance as a supplemental agreement just a moment ago, now I can afford to enter into task order 4 with Heath and Lineback engineers, along with ARC's great support as well, 80-20 again. So in this case, task order 4 completes final construction plans for the city of Sandy Springs portion of the Path 400 project. It completes final construction plans, specifications, and estimates for the City of Atlanta segment. We're in an intergovernmental agreement regarding this project. And construction services tasks that we would look to the design consultant to provide us. That's not CEI, actual inspection, but more so the day-to-day submittal, approval, et cetera, that is associated with project delivery throughout the life of the project. With that said, this proposed fee for this task order 4 is at $591,546.74. And this will be task order 4 as we've worked our way through project delivery since the initial award of the contract to Heath and Lineback. Mayor and Council, with that, do you have any questions?
All right, you've heard the report of the Public Works Director. What's the desire of council?
Mayor.
Ms. Rochelle.
I move that we approve agenda item 2023-192, approve a task order 4, scope of work and fee, Heath and Lineback, Inc., for the Georgia State Route 400 multi-use trail extension design project.
Motion by Ms. Rochelle. Is there a second?
Second.
Been moved by Ms. Rochelle, seconded by Mr. Paulson, that we approve agenda item 2023-192, the task order number 4, for the scope of work and fee for Heath and Lineback for the Georgia 400 multi-use trail extension design. Any discussion? Hearing none, we'll call the question. The question's on agenda item 2023-192, the approval of task order 4 for Heath and Line back in the Georgia 400 multi-use trail extension. All in favor of the motion, say aye. Opposed, no. The item is approved. The clerk will please read the next item.
Agenda item number 2023-193. This is consideration and acceptance of a purchase and sale agreement for property located at 6029 K-Ron Drive in Land Lot 71 of the 17th District, Fulton County, Georgia. That's tax parcel number 17-0071-003-0575, associated with the Hammond Drive widening project, and that's city project number S2-193, presented by Public Works Director Marty Martin.
Mr. Martin.
Mayor and council, as you well recollect, we have been engaged in protective buys to secure properties identified as potential displacements on Hammond Drive for some time. Tonight, I bring to you the protective buy purchase of 6029 K-Ron Drive at a price of $575,000 to execute yet another protective buy in support of this project. With the purchase of this property tonight, we anticipate a potential of up to 4 future displacement protective buys that the city would require to execute this project. In terms of full up right-of-way acquisition, we forecast that for later this year, late fall, when we would complete right-of-way plans and then begin in earnest the true right-of-way or the deliberate right-of-way acquisition associated with this project. This property is, upon evaluation, a candidate for first responder lease out.
You've heard the report of the Public Works Director. What's the desire of council?
Mayor Paul,
Ms. Mueller.
I move that we approve agenda item 2023-193, the acceptance of a purchase and sale agreement of property located at 6029 K-Ron Drive in Land Lot 71 of the 17th District of Fulton County, Georgia, tax parcel number 17-0071-0003-057-5, associated with the Hammond Drive widening project, project number S2-193.
We have a motion by Ms. Mueller. Is there a second?
Second.
A motion by Ms. Mueller, seconded by Dr. Kelly, that we approve agenda item 2023, acceptance of the purchase and sale agreement for property located at 6029 K-Ron Drive. Any discussion? Hearing none, we'll call the question. The question's on agenda item 2023-193, acceptance of a purchase and sale agreement for property located at 6029 K-Ron Drive. All in favor of the motion, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. The item is approved. The clerk will please read the next item.
Agenda item number 2023-194. This is consideration to approve a purchase and sale agreement, right-of-way deed, and temporary construction easement for property located at 325 Mount Vernon Highway, Sandy Springs, Georgia. That's tax parcel ID number 17-0071-0001-0395, city project number TS191, presented by City Attorney Dan Lee.
Mr. Lee.
Mayor and Council, this is a property that you had authorized the use of eminent domain, and I bring to you tonight a recommendation that we settle the matter by the payment of $800,000. As you see on the screen, this is the property. It's a vacant bank building located at the intersection of Boylston and Mount Vernon, and it's, by anybody's standard, a very prime piece of property. Almost an acre of property, if you go to the next slide. The city requires a third of an acre, a little over a third of an acre, in order to complete this project. It's not, the value of the property, according to our appraiser, is $659,000. That is for the land that is needed. In addition to that, a $42,000 temporary construction easement. That's a total of $701,000. In my humble opinion, our appraiser neglected to give a value to the consequential damages of the new proximity to the roadway. As you can see, this property, the building itself, is moved very closely to the roadway. It also, in the parlance of selling real estate, damages the property in that you can no longer drive around the building, as you now have three entranceways, one from Boylston and 2 from Mount Vernon. The loss of that access and that change in proximity to the roadway, we believe, is in excess of $100,000. That and the cost of litigating it, we believe that is in the city's best interest to settle the matter for $800,000. We'd recommend that to you.
You've heard the report of the city attorney. What's the desire of council?
Mayor Paul,
Ms. Mueller.
I move that we approve Agenda Item 2023-194, the acceptance of a purchase and sale agreement, right-of-way deed, and temporary construction easement for property located at 325 Mount Vernon Highway, Sandy Springs, Georgia, tax parcel number 17-001-039-5, project number TS-191.
Got a motion by Ms. Mueller. Is there a second? Second. Then motion by Ms. Mueller, seconded by Dr. Kelly, that we approve Agenda Item 2023-194, a purchase and sale agreement, right-of-way deed, and temporary construction easement at 325 Mount Vernon Highway. Any discussion? Ms. Rochelle.
Dan, do you know what they're planning on doing with the building?
You never know what's accurate, the truth, but the lawyer on the other side suggests that they have a contract for sale of it, but I don't know what they're going to intend to do with it. It becomes a very prime piece of real estate, what's left of it, but the bank building will have to go.
So it's under contract?
According to the lawyer. I
Okay.
haven't seen it.
All right, thanks.
Any other discussion? Hearing none, we'll call the question. The question is on Agenda Item 2023-194, acceptance of a purchase and sale agreement, right-of-way deed, and temporary construction easement at 325 Mount Vernon Highway. All in favor of the motion, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. The item is approved. The clerk will please read the next item.
Agenda item number 2023-195. This is a consideration of contract award for housekeeping services to American Facilities, Inc., and to authorize the city manager to execute the contract. Presented by Facilities, Capital Construction, Building Operations Director Dave Wells.
Mr. Wells.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. In 2019, staff utilized the City of Alpharetta's procurement award of American Facilities, Inc., Services, Inc., through a state-authorized piggyback contracting. The initial service was for this complex, City Springs complex. Shortly thereafter, we added the police and court buildings to the contract. At the end of the year, we brought a task order in front of you all to approve to have the AFS perform all housekeeping throughout the city. The City of Alpharetta has just recently renewed their contract with the AFS. And the new AFS housekeeping proposal reflects the 2019 housekeeping prices. Because of the consistent quality of services the AFS provides the city, and them honoring this 2019 pricing, it is in the city's best interest to accept the extension to the current contract. Staff recommends the City Council approve a resolution to approve a extension to the existing contract, American Facility Services, Inc., in the amount of $436 for city-wide housekeeping services for the period of July 1st, 2023, with the option of 2 additional 12-month renewal periods, and to authorize the city manager to execute the same.
All right, you've heard the report of Mr. Wells. What's the desire of council?
Mayor Paul,
And Dr. Kelly.
I move approval of Agenda Item 2023-195, approval of a contract award for housekeeping services to American Facilities Incorporated, and to authorize the city manager to execute the contract.
We have a motion by Dr. Kelly. Is there a second? Second. Then motion by Dr. Kelly, seconded by Ms. Mueller, that we approve Agenda Item 2023-195, contract award for housekeeping services to American Facilities, Inc. Any discussion?
Mr.
Dr.
Wells.
Kelly.
Can you help me understand? I think I know, but can you just confirm for me what piggyback contracting is?
So when the City of Alpharetta did a competitive bid for their housekeeping services, and we, as a city, can piggyback off of their contract since it was a competitive bid. That's back in 2019, our housekeeping services actually fell under a company called Spectre, which is one of our contractors here that managed the Performing Arts Center. When we terminated their contract, we lost the ability to have housekeeping services in this. So we went out to the surrounding cities to see what contracts they had out there, and American Facility Services was one of them. So we interviewed them, and we piggybacked off their contract to award the services.
Okay, thank you.
Any other discussion? Hearing none, we'll call the question. The question is on Agenda Item, I lost my place here. Get the right page. It's a contract award for housekeeping services to American Facilities and authorizing city manager to execute the contract. All in favor of the motion, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. The item is approved. The clerk will please read the next item.
Agenda item number 2023-196, consideration to approve a recipient-subrecipient agreement with the Georgia Emergency Management Agency / Homeland Security for the Public Assistance Program for the Presidential Declaration designated FEMA 405 or 4501 DRA under the Robert T. Stafford Disaster Relief and Emergency Assistance Act, presented by Fire Chief Keith Sanders.
Chief Sanders.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. So we are on May 23rd, 2023, we received a final inspection report from Georgia Emergency Management Agency, which was recommending a reimbursement to the city in the amount of $223,951.49. This reimbursement was for expenses that we used with equipment and supplies, as well as services during the pandemic response. We're asking for your approval of this so we can receive those funds, and I'm available to answer any questions you may have.
You've heard the report of the Chief of the Fire Department. What's the desire of council? Mr. Paulson.
I move approval of agenda item 2023-196, approve a recipient-subrecipient agreement with the GMA, Georgia Emergency Management Agency, Homeland Security Public Assistance Program for the Presidential Declaration designated FEMA 4501 DRA Disaster Relief Emergency Assistance Act.
Yep. Mouthful.
Yep.
Is there a second?
Second.
All right, Mr. DiGiulio. We've got a motion by Mr. Paulson, seconded by Mr. DiGiulio, that we approve agenda item 2023-196, a recipient-subrecipient agreement with the Georgia Emergency Management Agency, Homeland Security, for the Presidential Declaration designated under the Robert T. Stafford Disaster Relief Emergency Assistance Act. Any discussion?
Mayor Paul.
Mr. Paulson.
So at one point you had asked for $380K, and we wound up getting $223. This is how all these requests have been prorated?
Well, what we discovered and in the final report that unintentionally we had some accounting. We had submitted duplicates of billing. And so, when they did their inspection, they identified those, and that's the reason why we didn't receive everything that we had submitted. We duplicated some of those requests. That's correct.
That seems unfair to me.
We tried.
Yeah. Any other discussion? All right. Hearing none, we'll call the question. The question's on agenda item 2023-196, approving a recipient-subrecipient agreement with the Georgia EMA and Homeland Security for the Presidential Declaration designated under the Robert T. Stafford Disaster Relief and Emergency Assistance Act. All in favor of the motion, say aye. Opposed, no. The item is approved. Going to reports, let me go through a couple of things. I want to read a letter that I received today. I want Chief DeSimone to listen carefully. This is from the Atlanta Women's Health Group, and it says, Dear Mayor Paul, I am writing to commend the Sandy Springs Police Department and their chief, Ken DeSimone. Recently, one of our practices within the Atlanta Women's Health Group was impacted by the deadly active shooter event in Midtown. At our request, a community outreach officer, Gerald Green, came to our offices and provided a presentation on deterring, identifying, and handling these deadly situations when they come into our workplace. Officer Green and his colleagues will be returning to evaluate the security of our medical office space and make specific recommendations to make it safer. It was reassuring and informative. It was a reassuring and informative experience. We are so glad to have the Sandy Springs Police Department on our side. Thanks for supporting Chief Ken DeSimone and the Sandy Springs Police Department. Signed by Genevieve Fairbrother, MD. So, Chief, thanks for doing that. And I would, this is something that the police department does as a community service to anybody who asks for it. I'm glad they did, and I encourage other offices, businesses, and institutions and Sandy Springs to take advantage of this service, because we're in a sad state of affairs where more and more frequently we're running into active shooter challenges, and knowing what to do and how to handle those literally can save lives. So thank you for doing that, and I just want to read that. Also, while on the subject of the police department, I want to commend Major Benji Kane for his retirement. We were glad to be able to do that, and we're going to miss him. though one more Alabama fan leaving the police department is not a bad thing. No, he was an original. He was part of the original team that was part of that. And I said during his retirement, he's part of the people. He's part of the group that set the culture for our police department. And why it's so good is because you got to get the culture right, and doing things professionally and doing things right. And Benji Kane was part of helping us do that. So we saluted that. That was the good news. The bad news, we lost a very dear Sandy Springs resident in the last week or so. Alvin Johnson had been on the Board of Appeals. Mayor Galambos had originally appointed him to that position, and I kept appointing him. And he ran into some health issues and resigned from that, but he died just over a week ago. A great loss to the community, a tremendous loss to the community. Alvin was very active in a wide range of things, a wide range of activities, and was a very valued member of the Board of Appeals, as well as a lot of other things that went on in this city, and he will be sorely missed. I know Dr. Kelly probably will have some things to eulogize about in a moment, but I could not let his passing go unnoticed. A couple of other good things. If you haven't been to the Sundown Social, it's totally different than anything we do out there. You know, most time we have thousands of people and loud noise and music, and everybody's having a wonderful time. Sundown Socials are really relaxed, kind of just, go out and listen to some music, have a libation or two, attack the hot dog truck, which is what I did last week. And it's just a very relaxing, fun evening. So I want to commend staff for adding that, and I look forward to doing some more of them. The city manager and I have been reached out to by Georgia Tech, and we're following up with them. They've got some classes that they want to send some of their students out here to do some research. It's not free, but it's cheap. About $500 to pay for some of the materials and other things they do, and to get them to do that. So we are working with some faculty at Georgia Tech to bring them out here, and I'm looking forward to being able to do that. I think that'll be a real value, and particularly if we can build and we talked to the faculty about a long-term relationship with Georgia Tech in their public policy as well as their civil engineering department, so that we can maybe get to know some of these civil engineers while they're still in college and give them an opportunity to find out how wonderful it is to work for the city of Sandy Springs. And then finally, I want to commend the folks who put together the Juneteenth event on Sunday. It's growing, and, a nice crowd. People seem to enjoy it. There were people from all over. I think half of Dunwoody City Council and Mayor was here, and then some folks from the council in Alpharetta. So it became more of a regional event, which is great. I think that's very good. And then, of course, I commend all the fathers Sunday. It was Father's Day. It was particularly meaningful Father's Day for me, not just because the water broke in the city, but I found out that we're going to have grandson number 7. So no girls yet, but we're still holding out hope. So that'll end it on a personal note. Dr. Kelly, if you'd like to say something about the Juneteenth event, and then I'll ask for anybody else. And Mr. Johnson.
Yeah, actually, I was just going to tie those together, because part of the reason that we undertook that in the community was from the advice of Dr. Johnson. So I just wanted to say a few words on the record about him and what he meant to me personally. He was a scholarly mentor and a very forthright and plain-speaking political advisor, and a wonderful friend and community leader. When the idea of pursuing Juneteenth came up a couple years ago, for me, he was the first phone call before anybody, because I wanted his approval and his advice on that particular measure, on that particular initiative. So he'll be greatly missed. He's an incredibly accomplished, or was an incredibly accomplished individual, a scholar, just a thinker. Oftentimes in his successes, he was the only and the first person of color to do a lot of things. Incredibly humble, and what I'll miss probably most is how humble he kept me while he was around. Regarding the Juneteenth event, I agree, Mayor Paul. We had a larger crowd and people from all over. I think the mayor of Clarkston was here as well.
That's true.
So a lot of people came out. So it'll be interesting to see how this event grows. I also want to just give a quick kudos to our city manager for all the responsiveness. I had a couple of meltdowns this weekend for all kinds of reasons, the water and the Juneteenth event, and I just appreciate you and our staff for kind of helping me keep my composure. So I appreciate you. Thank you.
They do that all the time with me. I mean, that's a full-time job. But I want to say one more thing about Alvin Johnson. He was my conscience. I relied on him, and I could tell the moment that he didn't agree with something that I was contemplating, I would hear from him, and he always had very cogent reasons why I was wrong. So I always listened to him, and he was a member of, occupied a great place in my conscience. Anybody else? Mr. Bauman.
Along the lines of the discussion about police earlier, I know since the last meeting, the governor announced grants on the community public safety. And Chief, I don't mean to put you on the spot, but the Sandy Springs received, I think, a very meaningful grant for violent crime reduction. So I was really glad to see that and look forward to hearing more about that.
Anybody else? All right. Any staff reports?
Just one. None from me, but Ms. Carlisle has an important one.
All right. We'll go to the audit, the financials.
Okay, good evening, Mayor Paul and Council. The review of the April 2023 unaudited financials is as follows. We're at 83.33% of the year. Revenues are at 106.73%, and expenditures are at 79.41% of the budget. Revenues having achieved the FY23 budget since March financials are excise, mixed drinks tax, business and occupation tax, recreation program fees, and facility rentals. Again, we are starting to see some of the operating budgets overrun, but this is, again, not to alarm anyone, but just to make sure that you know we are aware and we will make the necessary adjustments before the end of this fiscal year. And that does conclude the financial review for April 2023.
All right, you've heard the report of the Chief Financial Officer. Are there any questions? Dr. Kelly.
I had one question just about, because we were asked in the work session about purchasing art. If we were to consider that, that would come out of fiscal year 24's?
23.
It would come out of 23? Okay, so
24.
Is it
it
24?
would come out of 24?
FY24.
Oh, okay.
Okay.
I thought we'd appropriated it last year.
We did, but I believe those were used for last year's purchases.
Okay.
So it's the same amount every year, the $50,000.
And that line would be the outdoor art program?
Yes, ma'am.
Gotcha. All right, thanks.
Any other questions? All right, thank you very much. We need an executive session for real estate and litigation. Is there a motion to suspend regular order and move into executive session?
Mayor Paul.
Mr. Paulson.
I move that we suspend the regular order and move into executive session for the purposes of litigation and real estate.
We have a motion by Mr. Paulson. Is there a second? Been moved by Mr. Paulson, seconded by Ms. Rochelle, that we suspend regular order and move into executive session for the purpose of real estate and litigation. Any discussion? Hearing none, we'll call the question. The question is on the suspension of regular order. All in favor of the motion, say aye. Opposed, no. We are in executive session at 8:07. All right, is there a motion to who are we missing? We have a motion by Mr. Paulson. Is there a second? Second. A motion by Mr. Paulson, seconded by Mr. DiGiulio to suspend the executive session and return to regular order. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, we'll call the question. The question's on returning to regular order. All in favor of the motion, say aye. Opposed, no. We are in regular order at 8:38. Mr. DiGiulio. Mr. DiGiulio moves adjournment. Is there a second? Seconded by Mr. Paulson. All in favor, say aye. Opposed, no. We are adjourned.